Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to be with you to teach this book, which I have recently written. As you can see, it is called Selections from the Glorious Quran, and it contains 8 selections from the Quran, from different parts of the Quran, and each lesson is made up of 4 sections. The first section is the text of the Quran, mere text of the Quran, but it has been taken from the Mus'haf al-Madina, published by the King Fahd Quran Printing Complex. But there is a special feature, and that is I have redistributed the text, because the text usually the words are close to each other, but I have distributed the words in such a way that they are very clear for those who want to read easily. That is the first section. Second section is lexical and grammatical explanations. Here I write the first line of the selection, write the translation into English, and then comes the lexical and grammatical analysis. If there are single words, they are explained, and grammatical constructions are also explained. Then I go to the second line and third line up to the end of the verses in the selection. The third section is additional notes, where I have added certain verses of the Quran, ayat, additional ayat, and information also. Sometimes I mention the meanings of certain words, Quranic words, in the modern Arabic language, so that you get in touch with the language of the day also. And the last section is the exercises. Inshallah, we'll do that, all that. And I would request you to read the lines, the ayat, which are not only the ayat that are mentioned here, but ayat which go before and after these ayat, so that you get a complete picture of what is being said in the text. In this surah, the basmala, that is the formula Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, is part of the surah. With regard to other surahs, there is a difference of opinion whether it is part of the surah or not, but with regard to Surah Al-Fatiha, it is part of the surah. You notice that bism, the alif has been omitted, and the word is ism, which starts which commences with a hamzatul wasl. There are some 10 nouns in Arabic which commence with a hamzatul wasl. You have learned some of them, ism and ibn, yes. In the same way, ibnatun, feminine of ibn is ibnatun. So the other words, inshallah, you will learn later, but they are not very important. But with verbs, of course, there is a rule. Verbs having 5 letters or 6 letters, their hamza is hamzatul wasl, like in kasara, in taqama, the Madi, like inkasara, inkisarun, masdar, inkasir, amr, insarafa, insarifu, insarif. So istaqbala, istaqbilu, istiqbal, masdar has no, is Hamzat al-Wasl, and istaqbil, amr, has also Hamzat al-Wasl. So in verbs, it is regular. Arabs call it qiyasi. Qiyasi means based on a rule. Sama'i is hearing, based on hearing, there's no rule. So there are about 10 nouns, out of which I have mentioned ibn, ism, and ibna. Hamzat al-Wasl actually has been imported because the word starts with a sukoon, and in Arabic is not permitted to start with a sukoon. Of course, in English language you have star, for example, speed. So you can start with a sukoon, but in Arabic it's not allowed. So once a word starts with a sukoon, you have to import an alif. This imported alif is called Hamzatul Wasl. It drops the moment there is another letter preceding it, which will support it, you drop the. So you say ismuhu, but you say masmuhu, the meme, the fatha of the meme suffices. So there is no need for the imported alif. Masmuhu, bismihi. So the kasra of ba that supports the beginning. But usually the alif is retained in writing. But in the Quran, especially in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Basmala, it is omitted because of its constant use. It is omitted, but I have given example for Sabbih Bismi Rabbikal Azim, where alif is retained. There's no rule about it in the Quran. Sometimes it is retained, sometimes it is retained, and not retained because it is not pronounced when it is preceded by another word. But when it starts a word, of course, we have to retain it. The word Allah is a proper name, and some people say it is derived from aliha, to be surprised or something like that. But the considered opinion is that it is a proper name, it is not derived. And the alif lam at the beginning it looks like alif lam, which is the definite article, but it's not a definite article. It's not a definite article. Of course, it's omitted. The alif is omitted. For example, lillahi, billahi. You don't know how to pronounce. But in one case, the alif is retained. It's Ya Allah. Ya Allah. You don't say Allah. You have to say Ya Allah. The alif is retained. Hamzatul Wasl is retained in this case. But in other cases, it is omitted. When you write lillah, Allahu, if you want to write lillahi, for Allah or belonging to Allah, what do? You just omit the alif. It becomes lillah. But in India and Pakistan, you will find lillah written like this, with another lam, which is wrong. There are a lot of mistakes in the Indian subcontinent with regard to Arabic, prevalent there, and unfortunately nobody corrects them. And so one of them is this lillah writing, it's being written with 3 lams, which is wrong. So if you want to write lillah, just remove the alif, it becomes lillah. So Ya Allah, Hamzatul Wasl is pronounced Hamzatul Qata'. If you remember, Hamzatul Wasl or Hamzatul Qata'. Hamzatul Qata' is pronounced always like Anta, Ana wa Anta. But Ibnun, Hazabni, you say Hazabni, Aina Bunuka, Masmuka, the alif is omitted. And in the Mus'haf, the Hamzatul Alama, the sign of Hamzatul Wasl is always written. In normal Arabic orthography, it's not written. Only in certain cases to show or to teach. But normally, the sign which is called Sila is omitted. But in the Mus'haf, somebody asked me the meaning of Mus'haf, so I'll explain to you. Al-Quran and Mus'haf, we have got two words. Mus'haf is the printed form of the Quran, or the written form of the Quran. That's why you can speak of, in the Mus'hafun, I've got a Pakistani Mus'haf, I've got a Saudi Mus'haf, I have a German Mus'haf, but we can't say I have got a Pakistani Quran, no. In Arabic, we say, in the Mus'hafun Kabirun, or Mus'hafun Saghirun. I've got a large copy, a small copy. In the Mus'hafun Pakistaniyun, Mus'hafun Saudiyun. We won't say Quran. We say, Ja'a fil Qur'ani. Ja'a fil Quran. Quran, it's used in the Quran. But when you speak of spelling, you say, it is written like this in the Mus'haf, because it has to do with writing. So there's a difference. The Egyptians don't use the word Quran, because Qaf for them is a problem. They can't pronounce Qaf, so they make it Hamza. But in the Quran, they don't want to make it Hamza, so they avoid using the word Quran. They say Mus'haf always, which sometimes leads to misunderstanding. So it should be Mus'haf for the written, printed form, and Quran for the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.